I believed in President Gorbachev's vision of a common European home that would stretch from Rotterdam actually to Vladivostok, as he put it. I think that was the right vision then. I continue to believe in open global cooperation, of course, including China, including Africa, including Latin America. So all of my economic advice has been based on the idea of peaceful cooperation and an open world that gives space for countries either to overcome historical burdens that they faced, to make up for lost time, to recover from financial crises, and so on. In 1989, I became advisor to the Polish government and the Solidarity movement as that country was transitioning from the Soviet system to a market and democratic system. And I advised on how Poland could reconnect with Europe. And indeed, the slogan of the Polish Solidarity movement was the return to Europe. So I recommended how to make the currency convertible, how to create stability, how to reduce the debt burdens that were inherited from the Soviet period, and so forth. It was quite successful. And on that basis, President Gorbachev asked me to work with his economic team, led by Gregory Yavlinsky at the time. And I tried to help them. And then after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, President Yeltsin asked me to work with Yegor Gaidar, his economic advisor and acting prime minister, in fact, to help. Now, the big point that I would make is that when I advised Poland, I made several recommendations to help Poland overcome a deep financial crisis, cancel Poland's debts, create a special fund to stabilize the currency, and so forth. These proved to be, first, they were adopted by the White House very quickly, my ideas, sometimes within a few hours. Second, they proved to be quite successful in stabilizing a collapsed economy. But when I made the same recommendations for Gorbachev's reforms, they were turned down completely without any iota of support. The White House said, hell no, we're not supporting the Soviet Union. And then when I made similar recommendations on how to stabilize the Russian situation in early 1992, which was also very, very difficult financially, a complete flat rejection. And I said to senior U.S. officials, but it worked in Poland. They told me it doesn't matter if it worked in Poland. This is different. Basically, the U.S. was already on the course of unipolarity, which is not my cup of tea at all. They said, why should we help these guys? They're our enemies. And they drew a line, first pushing the U.S.-led alliance to the eastern border of Poland, and that was going to be their new expanded range. And that's why they supported Poland. I thought they were supporting Poland out of the idea that we're going to create a better integrated world. But they drew the line basically at wherever NATO could go. So if NATO went east, okay, support that country. But they were making new barriers, not a common European home. I didn't get it at the beginning because, I was very much in favor of both Gorbachev's and Yeltsin's vision. Yeltsin put it a different way. He said, we just want to be normal. We want to be normal. We don't want to be on the outskirts. We just want to be normal. And I completely agree with that approach. And it works economically. But you have to have a geopolitical mindset to it. And the U.S. mindset was no. That still is the enemy on the other side. And we're going to expand NATO. We're going to create a larger U.S. imperium. We're going to help those on our side not those on the other side. And then, of course, to jump ahead to the current moment, to my huge dismay, of course, this has become exactly the same game plan vis-a-vis China. And this is also very strange for me because I've been going to China for 40 years, very frequently for the last 30 years. I have many former students who are senior officials, many colleagues, many friends. I never for one moment view China as an enemy or anything like an enemy. And yet the US is making it into an enemy by a daily drumbeat that China is the great threat to the world. And again, it's the same mentality. If you believe that the key is you have to be number one, then you look at any other success story as a threat. If you believe in an open, cooperative world, then you celebrate the success of others. I'm in the latter camp, but that's not the dominant foreign policy of the United States.
Professor Sachs, I find this so bewildering and difficult to understand from an American point of view, because the United States in the 1990s, in the 2000s, today still is at the very center of the economic system. I mean, it's still, the pivotal country. I would have thought that the United States benefits most from having open economic trade relations with countries like Russia, China, wherever. And in fact, it's in its interests to have them as friends. So has this never been understood or grasped in the United States? Or, am I seeing something completely wrong? I mean, it's dividing the world into blocks in this way, which is what is happening, coming about, is contrary to US interests. It's actually accelerating the end of US primacy.
Well, the question is what are interests here? Yeah. If you think like we do as economists, you say interests are better well-being, higher living standards, mutual gains from trade. That's how I think. So I agree with you that none of what the U.S. is doing is in the U.S. interest. If you think of U.S. interest as a realist strategist, or maybe not even a realist strategist, I'd say a neoconservative strategist who truly believes that the only security for the United States is to be the number one, the hegemon, the one with the full spectrum primacy, then you don't view your interest in absolute terms of rising living standards and so forth. You view your interest as the difference between your status and the other status. So even if you hurt both sides, if you hurt the other side even more, that seems to be beneficial in the mindset of neoconservatives. And it's been explained to me by a lot of international relations strategists. Yeah, we think differently from economists. Economists